Have a very interesting chat, and Archie's philosophy on it all, and it's can you explain to us, Archie, how...
Okay. It's something I almost found out by accident as I went through my own personal crisis, which was basically my ex turned very selfish and toxic. I used the corruption and prejudice in the system to take my child when he was 5 years old and alienate him against me and get all the money off of me. Now, this period of trauma, for want of a better word, lasted 10 years. When I reconnected with my son, he was already taller than me. In that time, when I wasn't a victim of my own trauma, wallowing in my room in a catatonic state, more or less, I was out protesting. I joined marches and demonstrations in the early years. I actually spent some time in prison and even in the nut house. This is a long period of never-ending trauma. And I got back out and I started demonstrating again. I started climbing in the genre of Fathers for Justice. I wasn't climbing for Fathers for Justice, other groups, but you know what I mean. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody should do this. It's not really suitable for everybody. Everybody doesn't have those sorts of abilities. But protesting is something I've learned which has enormous value in when our children contact us again. This is what happened. I kept all the paperwork. There's boxes and boxes of it. And because of my mental inabilities, it was all chaotic, disorganised. I knew you couldn't go through it for my son to understand what happened. I explained to him it would be the work of doing several PhDs and take all year long. I could explain it all to him, and I started, you know, this happened, that happened, he said this, but that wasn't good. I could feel that wasn't how I wanted my son to relate to what happened. It was what happened by accident. Is in the first year, after meeting each other a few times, I did not mention my protesting. I didn't mention this life, and he Googled me and he saw a picture of me in the superhero costume of the Hulk. As you know, that's a part of Fathers for Justice, and it's all green, and I was sitting on top of the Prime Minister's constituency office roof doing a protest there for children's rights and family courts. And he simply asked me, what are you doing on the Prime Minister's, what's that picture about, wearing that green thing? And then I started explaining to him, well, in the years where I could have the ability to just walk out the door and actually get shopping and things like that, and sometimes I didn't, I joined these people who were scaling, as we call it, climbing for protest and becoming conspicuous, attracting the media, getting the issue on people's minds. And he saw various things I'd done, bridges, ministries of justice, all that sort of stuff. And he saw in an instant who his father was. And I began to realise slowly from this point, what I had done, what I demonstrated was projected my love in the purest possible way. In those 10 years, I did not have a life. I was fortunate in that I was still left with enough assets that I could have a life. I didn't suffer many of the problems other people do in that so-called Bed-Sit Dads League. I didn't have any more partners, any more girlfriends. He explained to me that his mother had gone through dating channels every year. She was on her 4th try with some relationship. And he saw the effect on me, and all I'd been doing was climbing up things, getting arrested, demonstrating, saying how wrong this is, getting charges for it. And he saw this trail of beacons I had inadvertently laid through time and in the internet. What I'm referring to in this metaphor is each beacon is a piece of press. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, even if it's a tiny 1-inch column in your local paper because you were demonstrating outside a Kafka's office, it's a beacon that gets laid. And your children will Google it when they Google your name, and they'll see this trail of beacons every time you did a protest and every time some publicity was made about it. And when my son saw mine, he was bowled over. No other explanation was needed. Language isn't good enough. He understood what parental love is. He understood what a father is. When all that time in these 10 years of childhood, he had been told I was the most horrible person possible. His feelings had been twisted up and ripped apart from the father he could barely remember loving him at 5 years old to despise that father for the convenience of the mother's selfishness. It hurt my boy. It twisted him up. And the antidote was this trail of beacons. I could have sat with him and explained all the things, and it just would have been into a he said, she said that thing. That's not good. Pure love will show itself. There's lots of different ways, I'm sure. I found and stumbled onto one accidentally because it was already in me. As I said, I did not engage in other life when I had the money to. I did not take another partner. I didn't do all of these things. I just demonstrated, even though everybody was telling me how futile it was and it wouldn't change anything, and how stupid I look, dressed in a Spider-Man costume or whatever up some building. And I was telling them this is all I can do, because I don't want to rejoin your normal life. It's meaningless to me. My love for my son comes first. And he saw that. That's what I'd like to explain. Please, parents who have got any similarity to the trauma I suffered, I'm going to suggest something to you, and it might sound mean. It's tough love. You need to stop wallowing in your misery on Facebook. I go on Facebook and I see everybody sending these wonderful sentiment cards to each other, quotes from Gandhi, quotes from everybody about how you think you relate to life. Such highfalutin spiritual nobleness. But in reality, what you're doing is wallowing in your misery and sharing the sentiments with other people who have that experience. Now, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm trying to give you a perspective. Show your love. Don't make excuses like you're worried about being arrested. There are no penalties that compare to love. I've never been put in prison for what I've done for now 15 years of protesting. That's right, people. I'm back with my son. I've got money. I've got a building that he's converting into flats for me. I don't need to do this. I've been doing this for 4 years now. When my personal life is sorted out, I hope some of you sitting at home and suffering, not needlessly, but unnecessarily, get out there and fight. If you fancy climbing, talk to people like me. If you fancy demonstrating, talk to people who demonstrate. Do something and lay that trail of beacons, because your children, when they've gone through the alienation and all the brainwashing, are going to need something so clear and so obvious it doesn't need any explanation to how much you love your children. And they need to understand that. Help them understand what they've missed. Just get out and do something. If you want to climb, talk to me.